Greetings, my humble viewers. There's something important I have to say. I have to talk about Mr. Saturn. So I'm gonna do that now. What the heck is a Mr. Saturn? Like, actually, I'm gonna analyze this. So, starting in this little game known as Mother 2, or Earthbound to all the Americans who received their localization, there was this species in the game called Dosai-san, or Mr. Saturn in the localization. Now, with a name like Mr. Saturn, you may think that all of the species is male. This isn't correct though, as the suffix "san" in Japanese can refer to both men and women. It's something that unfortunately doesn't translate very well with their localized name. Regardless, they're essentially genderless. Mr. Saturn then went on to reappear in Mother 3, of course, and ever since their debut in Mother 2, they've remained synonymous with the iconicness of the Mother series. Many people may have seen Mr. Saturn for the first time through the Super Smash Bros. Series, and in that series of games, Mr. Saturn makes these funky sounds. Mr. Saturns are very intelligent, and in the series have made tools and technology. It's just funny to think that they're these really intelligent creatures, despite their simple designs. Somehow, in all the Mother videos I've made, I don't really think I've spoken much about Mr. Saturn. I've made so many videos about Mother 3, and yet I've never mentioned that at one point Itoi considered making Mr. Saturn playable in the game, as confirmed here in an interview with 64 Dream in their April 1997 issue. Speaking of stuff that never materialized with Mr. Saturn, you know that at one point Itoi wanted to make a Mr. Saturn puzzle game? In the same April 1997 interview from 64 Dream magazine, he reveals that despite not understanding the setting and characters of Puyo Puyo, he enjoys the series regardless. I guess this confirms though he'd never played Mado Monogatari. Anyways, I guess the idea of a puzzle game populated by fun, silly characters appealed to him, so he thought the idea of having his own one starring Mr. Saturn would be worth thinking about, which unfortunately he didn't end up pursuing very far. Itoi never really did any other video games besides the Mother series. Mother 3's development hell really turned him off of doing game development, leaving his ideas for a potential Mother 4 unrealized. Well, actually, there are two other games that Itoi made that weren't the Mother series, those being the Itoi's Bass Fishing games for Super Famicom and N64. Yeah, I'm getting off topic now, but all I'll say is that this series is so interesting and crazy that it exists. It's a fishing game made by Shigesato Itoi, with Shigesato Itoi in it. And the N64 one may or may not have reused texture assets from EB64, but it's never been really confirmed. To get back slightly more on topic, Itoi did also make this physical game in the late 90s of the Slot Brothers from Earthbound. It's extremely difficult to find now, and I definitely think I'll have to make a video covering it at some point. Now, back to the actual subject matter of this video. Let me say where I first saw Mr. Saturn. I believe it was in a Let's Play of a Mario fan game where Mr. Saturn shows up as an item, and back then, not knowing what he was, I thought he was like a raw chicken, since his sprite had a similar color to the raw chicken item from Minecraft. Anyways, I then later went on to play Super Smash Bros. And see him in that, which I think Mr. Saturn's representation, in all honesty, is kinda odd. The sounds they make when you chuck them at opponents, while they are funky like I did say before, they're kinda sad. I don't want to be hurting them. Poor guys. Anyways, it's nice that they got featured in the Smash Ultimate Everyone Is Here mural, despite not being a playable character. Yeah, Mr. Saturn, despite guest appearing in a few games such as Kirby Superstar Ultra, has never been playable. Maybe someday, little guy. One random thing I want to mention is that I think it's amusing that the Saturn Valley theme from Earthbound is basically a remix of the Monkey Cave theme from Earthbound Beginnings. No, really, listen. It's funny thinking about the whole Saturn motif with these guys, because it's something that is certainly there with their aesthetic, but it's not overly prevalent. Dosai does translate directly to Saturn, of course, and their houses have the iconic ring of Saturn around them too. Considering Mr. Saturns are supposed to be aliens, the whole otherworldly aesthetic of them makes a lot of sense. Speaking of which, I think the major thing I want to say is that Mr. Saturn is kind of like the self-insert of Mystery Toy. In his life, he accomplished a lot. He was always willing to try new things, and new things he did try, and of course, video game development was one of those things. He's such an intelligent person, despite his outwardly friendly and sometimes silly eminence. Similarly, Mr. Saturns can be seen the same way. They seem to be so goofy, and yet it's thanks to their technology that the world is able to be saved at the end of Earthbound. I usually don't think self-insert characters of the creator and pieces of media are handled that great, but Mr. Saturn is probably the most exceptional and interesting example of that. Itoi really is a genius, just like his funny alien creatures he created. It's nice to know as well that Mr. Saturn's legacy will live on too, with the plethora of merchandise made for them. Which reminds me, it's funny that when Mother 1+2 was coming out in 2003, Mr. Saturn was used heavily to market the game, which is just funny in the context that Mother 1, one of the aforementioned games included in that collection, doesn't feature Mr. Saturns whatsoever. Despite how synonymous Mr. Saturn is with the Mother series as a whole, they're still ultimately missing from the first game in the series. Mother 1 fans be losing, I guess. What was the point of this video, you might be asking now as I'm closing out? Well, it's that I like Mr. Saturn, even though I like the Tenders better.